fucking sadistic piece of shit!
Outlander Season 8 is gearing up for a big emotional hit, and by the looks of it, someone's going to die. But here's the twist. It could also be setting things up for the surprise return of Claire's first husband, Frank Randall. That might sound like a stretch, but with everything we know so far, it's not completely out of the question. Author Diana Gabaldon has already confirmed that the show's final season won't stick exactly to the ending she's written in her books. Still, it will feature some key scenes from her 9th novel, Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone, and probably bits from the still unpublished 10th book too. So even though things might not play out exactly as they do on the page, there's a good chance we'll see a few major book moments come to life, including ones that could bring Frank back into the picture. Frank, played by Tobias Menzies, was there right from the beginning as Claire's husband. But he hasn't been around in a while. His character died back in Season 3, and aside from a short flashback in Season 4, we haven't seen him since. It's actually been 7 years since Tobias Menzies last appeared on the show as either Frank or Blackjack Randall. For a character who played such a major role early on, that's a long absence. It would honestly feel a bit wrong if Outlander ended without acknowledging him again. And if Season 8 ends with Jamie Fraser's death, something that's hinted at pretty strongly, then that opens up the perfect opportunity to bring Frank back, even just briefly. Now, let's talk about Jamie. There's a strong possibility he's going to die in the final season, at least temporarily. That's because Season 7 already covered the Battle of Monmouth, Claire getting injured, and Jamie stepping away from the Continental Army, which all happens in the 8th book. The Frasers decide to return to Fraser's Ridge after all that, but the peace doesn't last. In Book 9, Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone, the Revolutionary War catches up to them again, this time in North Carolina. Jamie gets pulled back into the fight, and this time, things go badly. He falls in battle and is believed to be dead. When Claire finds him, she thinks he's gone for good until she notices the tiniest sign that there's still life in him. Using her healing skills, which are practically magical at this point, she brings him back. It's one of the most dramatic moments in the book, and it's pretty likely the show won't skip it. Plus, earlier hints, like Jamie quitting the army, returning home, and even a mention of their daughter Faith possibly being resurrected, seem to be building up to something just like this. What makes Jamie's supposed death even more interesting is that he actually knows it's coming. When Brianna traveled from the future, she brought back a history book about the Revolutionary War, and in it, Jamie is listed as dying in battle. The kicker? That book was written by none other than Frank Randall. So even though he's long dead by this point in the show, Frank's work is still shaping the story. And that little connection might be the thread that pulls him back into the narrative in Season 8. So how exactly could Frank return? Flashbacks seem like the most obvious route. Since he's not alive in the main timeline, the only way to bring him back without breaking the story is through memories or maybe even dreamlike sequences. If Jamie's death is connected to a book Frank wrote, it would make a lot of sense for the show to dig into how and why Frank knew so much about Jamie in the first place. The fact that he wrote about North Carolina's war battles, especially ones that involved Jamie, suggests that he did a ton of research into Claire's life in the past. That part of his story hasn't really been explored in depth yet, but it absolutely could be in a flashback episode. Actually, Season 7 already started planting the seeds for this. Remember when Brianna was in the 20th century at Lallybrook, waiting for Roger to return from his time travel mission? She was looking at one of Frank's books, The Soul of a Rebel, The Scottish Roots of the American Revolution. That's not just a throwaway detail, it's the exact same title as the book Brianna takes back to the past in Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone. So even if it felt like a small Easter egg at the time, it's probably meant to lead into something bigger. That leads to another big point. How much Frank really knew. At one point in the show, Brianna finds out that Frank had known about a fire that supposedly killed Jamie and Claire. That was a huge reveal. It meant that Frank knew Jamie had survived Culloden and that Claire would eventually return to him. And if Frank had pieced all that together, he probably also figured out that his own days with Claire were numbered, since she had promised not to leave him while he was alive. But what's really fascinating is that he still went ahead and wrote about Jamie anyway. So why would Frank go through the trouble of documenting Jamie's life and death in a book? It's not like anyone was forcing him to. The only explanation that really makes sense is that he wanted to leave something behind, something for Claire or Brianna to find one day. Despite everything, that would have been a generous move. He could have chosen to keep all that information to himself and taken it to the grave. Instead, he made sure they'd know Jamie's story, even if he never got to tell them in person. If the show wants to wrap things up in a satisfying way, this would be a perfect moment for a Frank-centric flashback. We could see him putting together the puzzle pieces, writing the book, and maybe even expressing, if only to himself, why he felt the need to do it. That would bring his character arc to a meaningful close and tie the past and present together in a way that really honors the entire series. And let's not forget the emotional full-circle aspect of Claire's journey. She started out in Season 1 as a woman torn between two very different lives, and two very different men. She was married to Frank in the 20th century, then fell in love with Jamie in the 18th. Frank was never her soulmate, and we've known for a long time that she always was meant to end up with Jamie. But here's the thing, none of that would have happened if she hadn't first been with Frank. He's not just her ex, he's part of what made her story possible. Without Frank, Claire wouldn't have had Brianna, and Brianna would never have traveled back in time if Frank hadn't found and saved that obituary. More importantly, Claire never would have found Jamie's body and brought him back from the brink of death if she hadn't had Frank's book. Even though he's been absent for a while, Frank has been quietly shaping the story in the background this whole time. The show hasn't always given Frank the same level of attention as the books do. He's been a more significant presence on the page than on the screen. But now that we're heading into the final stretch, it's the perfect time to change that. Bringing him back, even briefly, would be a great way to remind viewers of everything he did and how much of the story actually hinged on him. So whether it's through a touching flashback, a surprise reveal, or just a quiet moment of reflection from Claire, Frank deserves some kind of closure. Season 8 should honor the role he played, not just in Claire's life, but in the bigger Outlander story. Because while the show has always been about Claire and Jamie's epic romance, none of it would have happened without the man who came first. And in the end, it might just be Frank Randall who helps bring the story full circle. And that's that for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Your suggestions for future videos are always welcome in the comments section below. Don't forget to like our video, share the video with your family and your friends, and subscribe to the channel to stay in the loop. And if you want, you can share your thoughts about this video in the comments section below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.